Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 26th of January, 2022. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So, a major announcement actually got to do with Polygon today. So, Wyatt, who used to work at YouTube, actually announced today that he's going to be the new CEO of Polygon Studios, which is Polygon's kind of NFT metaverse-focused area of their ecosystem there. Absolutely massive news, right, guys? I mean, this is the Web2 brain drain in full effect, right? Lots of Web2 people coming over to Web3 for the, I guess, like enhanced opportunity, but also for to work within a kind of more decentralized space. Like, as we all know, YouTube is a extremely centralized video streaming platform. It doesn't try to be decentralized. Has never tried to do that, and it provides a lot of value. But there are issues with it, right? We've seen kind of like censorship issues before. We've seen a lot of kind of stuff happen around, I guess, like deplatforming and also what is it? Copyright issues as well, which are pretty crappy. And there is a reason why it is the way it is. But there are a lot of kind of things that can be done better in a decentralized way if we do eventually get a decentralized YouTube. And I get the irony of that, considering that you're probably watching this on YouTube. I use YouTube. We all do. We all use it. We all watch it. It's all good. But I think it's really cool that heavy hitters from YouTube are making their move into the Web3 ecosystem. And especially going into things like NFT and metaverse stuff, and that's exactly what Ryan is doing here by becoming the CEO of Polygon Studios. And I quote tweeted this today, and I said, once again, Polygon making all the right moves. I feel like what Polygon's real strength seems to be, and I'm saying this as a casual observer, not just because I'm an advisor, but just observing all the actions that they've taken up until this point. They're really, really good at landing the right talent and acquiring the right talent in any way that they see fit. Obviously, they did a lot of that with their roll-up teams, right? Their ZK teams, where they acquired 3 ZK teams, and there's not many of them. There's probably less than, I don't even know, probably less than 10 ZK roll-up teams, probably even less than that, right? In terms of like even the good teams as well. And Polygon has 3 of them, right, that they acquired. But not only that, they do a lot of great business development and marketing, and acquiring the kind of like right people to kind of help lead that. And now they have, I believe Ryan worked as kind of head of gaming at YouTube, or in their kind of like gaming space. So now they have him coming on board to be the CEO of Polygon Studios, which is their NFT and metaverse focused kind of like business area of Polygon. And obviously, as you guys know, I consider NFTs and the metaverse to be the thing that is going to onboard the most people. So this is a very smart play, I believe, here, and a very defensive play for the future. And I think Ryan's going to do very well in this role. I've heard nothing but good things about him. So super exciting hire for Polygon here. I'm very, very curious to see what Ryan does, how he kind of makes his mark on Polygon as a whole, and how he makes his mark on the NFT, metaverse, Web3 space of crypto. So speaking of Web3 and brain drains, David Marcus, which is a name that you guys might be familiar with. He was the guy who led Novi, which used to be known as DM, which was known as Libra from Facebook. He used to kind of like run that for a while, I think. And he was pretty big on that. And then he kind of like left. And in his bio, he says he's taking a brief hiatus before starting something new and exciting. Well, today he put a tweet out saying, "I've never felt this connected to a community of builders like the crypto Web3 one. I'm not talking about folks who are in it for a quick speculative win. I'm talking about people who want to rebuild the internet's infrastructure to move value and power into the hands of the people." So, I mean, in one tweet, he very quickly kind of like, I guess, what does he do here? What's the kind of like term I'm looking for? He gives the value prop, like very succinctly in this one tweet of what we're trying to do with Web3. And it's really funny that he's coming from basically, he's coming from Facebook, right? The most centralized kind of company you can think of, right? An internet company you can think of. And he's coming from building attempting to build a very centralized crypto payment rail in Novi or Libra or DM, whatever it's called. And there's actually been an announcement today that I believe DM or one of these things are kind of like splitting up and selling off their assets, which means it's kind of like being shut down, apparently due to regulatory pressure, which pretty much most people kind of predicted. They said, regulations are going to prevent Facebook from doing this. I remember if I brought this up, but it was something that I kind of like was thinking about, because when you look at Facebook, right, like, and look at all the regulators and how they treat Facebook, they absolutely hate it. So there was no way they were going to let Facebook essentially create their own kind of like their own money or their own payments network, and especially not using crypto. So no surprise there. But I thought this was really surprising from David Marcus, because as I said, he has in his bio that he's going to be starting something new and exciting soon. So I'm very curious to see where he lands here. Does he start a Web3 company? I mean, it seems pretty obvious to me that that's what he's doing, because he says he's never felt this connected to a community of builders like the Web3, the crypto Web3 one. I'm not sure how old David is, or how long he's, what other things he's done besides. Oh, my internet's gone off again. Sorry, guys. But yeah, I'm not sure what other things he's done besides kind of like the Facebook DM. I mean, he's got PayPal in his kind of bio here, and he says he's built startups. But, I just going off his profile picture, he looks to be maybe in his 40s. Maybe he's younger than that. I don't know. But my internet's off, so I can't even check. But my point is that if he's saying this after having like potentially like a 20 plus year career already, having worked in tech and having worked in startups and things like that, that is a huge signal to me, like absolutely massive signal to me. And I do believe that whatever he announces that he's doing next is probably going to be, crypto Web3 related. So I'm super excited to see how that kind of like plays out there. And you may be wondering why I'm talking about kind of like David and why I'm focusing my attention on him, but it's not really about him. What it's about is people like David, people like Ryan that I just spoke about, moving from Web 2 to Web 3. These are executives. These are high-ranking people. These are people that are kind of like have big followings, are well-known within their respective industries, and they're making the leap. That is a huge vote of confidence for crypto. It is a huge boost to its kind of legitimacy, and it also sends out an absolutely massive signal to the rest of the Web 2 world saying, hey, we think this is serious. You should actually take a deeper look at this. Don't read the headlines. Don't read the bad takes on NFTs. Just come and look at what's happening in this ecosystem. And I think once people do that, they finally realize that, hey, okay, well, maybe there's something to this crypto Web 3 thing. Maybe all these headlines are just like really shitty. Maybe I should dive deeper in here. Maybe there is actual real value being created. And as we all know, there is, but I think it takes, people that other people trust to listen to them before they actually kind of like get it, or before it clicks for them. So super exciting to see more, I guess, of this talent drained from Web 2 into Web 3. So an absolutely massive announcement out of Arbitrum today. So this came out of kind of nowhere, but today Hunter from the Off-Chain Labs team who built Arbitrum, he's a community guy there, basically put out an update saying, we just pushed an update that lowers transaction fees on Arbitrum. This update makes Arbitrum 1 the most consistently cheap generalized L2. Now just imagine when Nitro is implemented. So this isn't even their Nitro upgrade, guys. This is just another optimization that they found to reduce fees. And obviously I've been talking about Optimism's optimizations lately, and now Arbitrum's come back in the game because they probably got a bit jealous, right? They're probably like, hey, Optimism keeps saying that they're cheaper than us. You know what? Screw you guys. We're going to make ourselves cheaper than you. I love this. I love these kind of like roll-up wars that are going on right now. And I wrote about that in the newsletter today if you want to check that out. But essentially, you can see here that Arbitrum 1 to transfer ETH at time of screenshot was $1.88. For Optimism, it was $2.56. For Boba, it was $2.91. Now, obviously, it's cheaper on the specialized networks like Loopring, ZK Sync, and Polygon Hermes, but they aren't generalized L2 networks. So it's kind of like comparing apples to oranges there. And, these costs are still going to keep coming down, guys. Remember I said to you that I think we're going to get a swap, not just to transfer ETH, but a swap to under $1 very soon on these optimistic rollouts before any of the L1 upgrades go in. I think we're trending there. Like, if Nitro reduces fees by only 50%, we've already got sub $1 ETH transfers at, I believe, 80 to 100 Gwei on optimistic rollouts, which people said were obsolete and they weren't cheap enough, and ZK is going to kill them. And as I've said to you guys before, I don't believe that's the case. I believe optimistic rollups are going to have a very, very bright future, at least for the short to medium term, and maybe one day ZK stuff gets so mature that it doesn't make sense to do optimistic rollup stuff. But I don't think that day is coming for a long time, as I mentioned before. But without getting too off track there, I think what I really love about this is that Arbitrum just kind of like, I don't know if they had this in their back pocket, but it kind of seems that when you really do kind of like look for optimizations, you can find them. Now, they've obviously been working really hard on Nitro, and I know this having talked to some people from from there, that they've just been kind of like working super hard on Nitro, trying to, you know, get costs down, trying to make the network more stable. It's a massive upgrade for all intents and purposes, but they've had time to go in and basically say, okay, well, you know what, how can we get our fees even cheaper before we do Nitro? Let's get a quick win in there. And that's what they seem to have done here. There isn't an explanation about how they did this. Maybe there will be a blog post coming. They're pretty good at putting out blog posts, but this is literally just a screenshot of L2fees.info, one of the websites from David Mihal here, from Hunter. So really cool to see this. You know, I'm sure Optimism's probably going to hit back and be like, hey, we just reduced fees again, guys, and now we're the cheapest one. But I mean, we all win if they keep doing this. Like, I want this to keep happening. I want them to keep going to war with each other. Even if every optimization that they do after a little while only results in like a 5-cent transaction fee saving, I don't care. Like, even if it's only like a 5% fee saving, I don't care. I want more of that. I want every single optimization these guys can squeeze out of these networks, and I want them in place. And I think the best way for that to happen is if these kind of like roll-ups go to war with each other, and not a war where it's kind of like violent and people kind of like lose, but a healthy kind of war where they're kind of basically battling it out for the number one spot. Because being the number one layer 2 network is an absolutely massive massive deal, right? Because not only from a valuation perspective for the network once they do tokens, but also from a kind of like social perspective, being the number one is huge. I mean, obviously Ethereum being the number one smart contract blockchain is massive. Everyone knows Ethereum, you know, everyone knows Vitalik, the creator of Ethereum, and people will know the top winning L2 teams, and they'll know the networks, and I think those builders will obviously get a lot of satisfaction out of that. But anyway, great to see this. I'm sure you know, any of you kind of you guys playing on Arbitrum lately have experienced the cheaper fees over the last, I guess, like 24 hours. I certainly have, playing around on Arbitrum, so very, very awesome to see this. So Synthetics announced today that they're putting incentives on their Optimism WETH SNX kind of a pool as part of this Synthetics kind of ecosystem here. So 50,000 SNX will be distributed for 1 month to WETH SNX LPs, and you can check out the guide for a short tutorial here. Obviously, I can't open it because my internet's off here, but essentially this, as I've said to you guys before, there's two ways that there's going to be kind of like liquidity incentives on L2. It's going to be the L2 native tokens and the native networks doing this, but they're not doing it right now in any big way. And then there's going to be the apps, and the apps are going to bring more liquidity with them. They're going to bring more kind of you know, users with them, because people are going to be like, oh well, here's money making opportunity, because that's what it really is at the end of the day. When you look at all these things and the chains that kind of like get the most adoption, whether they be L1s, L2s, or side chains, it's all about the incentives at the end of the day. Of course, it's about the apps for like a more sustainable ecosystem, but it's really about the incentives to kind of like bootstrap that. And it can't just be up to these L2 teams to issue their own kind of like native token and then to do all the kind of like liquidity subsidization or liquidity rewards. And also because it's going to be hard for them to play favorites between apps and things like that. So the apps can obviously do it with their own token, and that's exactly what Synthetics is doing here. It's exactly what a bunch of others are doing. I know Lyra is doing this on Optimism, and there's a bunch like the Magic ecosystem or the Treasure ecosystem on Arbitrum has been doing a lot of stuff. They launched something new today, I think. So yeah, I mean, I'm very happy to see this. I'm curious to see like how many new users and how much more liquidity goes over to Optimism because of this. I'm sure there will be a fair bit. I mean, I think 50,000 SNX at current prices is $250,000. I think SNX is about $5 right now. So that's $250,000 for WETH SNX LPs, and that could, you know, that could turn into even more than that if people hold on to their SNX and restake it and things like that. So really, really cool to see this from Synthetics. I'll link the blog post in the YouTube description for you to check out. So speaking of L2 and gas savings and everything like that, there's an awesome new tool here from this L2 Savings account, which you can go to the website L2SavingsOrg and connect your wallet to see how much in gas fees you've saved by sending your transactions on layer 2s instead of the Ethereum mainnet. This is, I mean, I can't load this right now, but I mean, I highly recommend going and checking this out. This is a really, really cool tool. I used it for Sassel.eth today, and I was able to see kind of like the L2 transactions that I've done on Sassel.eth, which isn't my main L2 wallet. It's just my public one, and I just kind of like linked it to see. But essentially, I had saved, I think it was like $1,500 or something like that, which is obviously a crazy amount of money considering the amount of transactions that I did. I think I've only done 30 transactions on L2 from my public address so far. So that's a pretty big saving there because of the fact that I've done them on L2 instead of L1. So definitely go check out this website if you want to see how much you've saved. I think it's really cool as well because it basically allows people to quantify their savings without having to basically try and guess. Because if you were to try and guess, it would and manually do this, it would take a while. Whereas this website handles that all for you, and you just kind of like normally connect your wallet to it, like you did to other websites that check these sorts of things like fees.wtf and things like that. So very, very cool to see this, and I hope to see this continue to add more features. I think they only support Optimism and Arbitrum right now, but I'm sure they're going to be supporting more L2s into the future. So Sam Ragsdale here from A16Z's engineering group basically put out a new release today saying that they built what did they build? They built a zero knowledge proof Merkle airdrop contracts that people can use. So what are these in plain English? Well, Sam basically says in his tweet here, people should be able to airdrop tokens to the community without asking them to dox their financial history. And they've built the tool with native Ethereum ZK proofs with supporting examples and libraries for developers to check out here. So essentially, from my understanding, what this allows you to do is do an airdrop without having to kind of like identify users and kind of collect all that personal information of users. So you're basically preserving their privacy using zero knowledge proofs, which is really cool because as I've said to you guys before, zero knowledge tech is not just for scalability, but it's also for privacy. And there's a lot of latent privacy applications that are going to be coming out and that people are going to be able to use to make use of this. You know, I've mentioned Sysmo before. They're doing a lot of great work there. But now we have this kind of like a developer example and libraries from Sam here, which you can check out. I'll link in the YouTube description, of course. But, you know, I've said for a while now that I think, you know, the two major things that I pay most attention to are scalability and privacy. And they seem to be coming at the same time and hand in hand. Obviously, there's a bit of overlap there with the zero knowledge stuff. But generally, privacy seems to be more at the forefront of people's minds lately, at least in my circles, because you really are. I mean, if you tell your address to someone and that address is one that you've used regularly, that someone can just go on Etherscan, crawl through your entire address. Not just Etherscan, they can put it into any tool and basically see everything you've ever done. And obviously that's not fun. And you know what's even worse is that if you have like a public address and then you accidentally link one of your private addresses to it because you mark up and send a transaction to it, then everything is linked forever and there's nothing you can do to change that. So obviously this isn't something that we want to kind of like stay into the network. I've explained before why I don't think we should have privacy at the base protocol layer. It's it kind of like leads to some perverse things, like if there is a critical bug, it'd be hard to kind of like find where that bug is and things like that, especially if it's got to do with an inflation bug. But all the applications building on top can enable privacy features, and we can have privacy stuff at layer 2, which I'm very much looking forward to seeing more of. But definitely check this out if you're a dev. Link in the description for you. So Felix here from Zapper put together a tweet today where he said, the devs at Zapper just finished indexing all the NFT transfers and OpenSea sales since block 0 on Ethereum mainnet. That's 26,000 NFT collections, 25 million NFT transfers, and 12 billion in sales on OpenSea. So obviously they're doing this as part of their kind of like new feature that I spoke about yesterday. They're kind of like new profile feature with NFT integration and all that sort of stuff. So very cool to see that. But I mean, that's crazy. 26,000 collections, right? Like, I know a lot of these collections are kind of like, it's funny because you have like the most well-known ones, right? Like CryptoPunks and Bored Apes and like Cool Cats and stuff like that. But then you have like the long tail, which may or may not have gotten some attention, but then died off. But then you have like the even longer tail, which just never get any traction. But still, people are making them. That's why there's so many collections here. Obviously, a lot of transfers, and 25 million transfers, and $12 billion in sales on OpenSea. I mean, OpenSea's just been killing the game, right? Like they've been the biggest winner of the NFT mania by far. They've enabled us to buy and sell NFTs like crazy. So really, really cool to see that as well. But yeah, just some quick kind of like NFT related stats that I wanted to highlight here, as it is, as Felix says here, very, very bullish. And I'm personally very much looking forward to their more of their kind of like NFT stuff that they're doing and kind of like further improving their NFT integration. Because as I said yesterday, I want to be able to have my, DeFi stuff, my NFT stuff, my whatever stuff all on the same dashboard. And that's what I think Zapper is working towards here. So a new tool from Etherscan came out yesterday, basically a chat tool that you can use at chat.blockscan.com. If you load that up, you'll be able to get a chat window, and then you'll be able to send a message to any Ethereum address using kind of like Etherscan's infrastructure, and then if someone else goes and uses that infrastructure, they can see your message there. So it's not like you can just, I mean, you can obviously message any address you want, but it's not like you're going to get a reply if you do that, right? There's no guarantee there. You're basically just using Etherscan's built-in kind of like chat feature here. But what I really like about this is it basically gives people a way to easily contact certain addresses for whatever reason. I mean, sometimes you want to contact an address to tell them something, and this is a really easy way to do it. People used to put this in the comments on Etherscan because there's a comment section. People would comment there and basically say, hey, blah, blah, blah. But now this is a more direct way to do it. There are some drawbacks to this, though. It's from what I understand, it's not a decentralized service, and it is not end-to-end encrypted either, so I wouldn't be doing any sensitive stuff on here, but it's still really cool. And I think there are other projects tackling this, like ETHMail, and I think I've covered Parallels Inbox, and there's also XMTP, which is a project that I've backed that's trying to do this kind of stuff as well. And I believe there's probably others that I'm just forgetting right now, but they're trying to do it in a decentralized way, like a truly decentralized messenger. The status as well, but yeah, truly decentralized messenger that incorporates all the stuff on Ethereum layer 1 that we know and love, like ENS names and POAPs and other NFTs and stuff like that, would be really, really cool to use. But I think this is a great kind of little proof of concept here. And obviously the, I guess, like moat for Etherscan here is that like it's Etherscan. They have a button right here that you can click and basically chat with people. And I'm assuming that it does. It tells you, it gives you like a little bit of a notification window there if you've got messages at your address. So whenever you go to Etherscan, you'll be able to see that on your addresses there. So I thought that was really, really cool. But looking forward to seeing how this evolves. Will they decentralize this? Will they do end-to-end encrypted chats? I'm not sure. Or does this kind of like stay as just what it is now as a proof of concept? We'll have to see how that plays out. But, there's no reason that Etherscan can't just be eventually become like a front end for one of these other decentralized solutions and like tap into them, especially the ones that are trying to be protocols like XMTP and stuff like that. But we'll have to see how that plays out. But yeah, really, really cool little feature from Etherscan here. All right, just wanted to give a quick shout out to one of my recent new favorite follows, Shoutout here, who's been writing a lot of great blog posts about, I guess, like Ethereum's architecture, from sharding to the monolithic versus modular architecture, rollups, layer 2s, all that good stuff. I think Shoutout has the potential to be the next Polygon with the amount of education that they're putting out, and obviously that's high praise. But I'm really loving this because Polygon has taken a break recently, I think, from doing blog posts, from educating, and well-deserved break after spending the better part of a year basically changing the narrative around Ethereum scaling publicly and just basically telling everyone, hey, you're wrong, this is how everything's going to scale. And now Shoutout is one of the other people kind of like picking up the pieces here and running with them and writing stuff about it. So I'm always on the lookout to highlight people doing this, highlight people kind of like writing really great blog posts about Ethereum. And definitely go follow them as well. You can get in cheap right now. They've only got 4,200 followers, so you can get in before they get to 50K. Imagine if you could buy kind of like shares in a person. I think you can. I think there's BitClout that was doing this, but I don't think their implementation is very good, where you can actually buy shares in a Twitter persona or someone on Twitter, and then they'd be worth more as that person kind of like got more attention, got more followers, and things like that. But maybe there's another project that I'm not thinking of right now that does it better than that. But yeah, definitely go give them a follow and definitely read their work. I think it's all published on Mirror. You can see it here, but you can visit their profile as well. I'm sure there'll be links there for you to kind of like visit too there. But yeah, I've got a few more minutes left here. So just staying on the same topic of kind of like education here and writing about certain things, I think, as I've mentioned before, the fastest way to kind of like grow yourself in this ecosystem and to get noticed by the people that you want to get noticed by, the people that, the actual kind of like true builders in this industry, is to educate. And I've mentioned before, you could do this through Twitter threads, or you could do this through blog posts, you could do it through videos. It doesn't really matter. The medium isn't too important. But what's important is writing about things that people haven't written about before. The reason why Polygon got so popular very quickly is because they started writing about things that people weren't really writing about, such as the modular blockchain architecture, such as ZK stuff and just layer 2 rollups in general. There were people writing about it, but not in the way that Polygon was doing. And they also coined the term monolithic as well. I think they coined the term monolithic chains, or at least they popularized it, which worked to completely change the narrative of monolithic versus modular. Pseudo-Theos has been doing the same thing, just focusing on less talked about topics, and that's why I've been really enjoying reading their work and why I'm highlighting them now. But, if you're just going to write about DeFi and NFTs and DAOs, that there's already a lot of people writing about that, so it might be a struggle for you to kind of like get attention on that work. But if you start writing about things that aren't talked about as much, but you think is a big deal, and turns out it is actually going to be a big deal, obviously, like layer 2 stuff, things like sharding and stuff like that, then you'll get attention. And there's always things to write about. And what I mean by write about as well is I don't just mean kind of like write anything, but also kind of like dumb it down, because let me take a recent example. There's this new sharding proposal from Dan Crad called Dank Sharding. You've probably been hearing about it lately. I did cover it on the Refuel, I believe, last week when he first published about it. But I think at this point, no one really understands the Explain Like I'm 5 version of it. No one really understands what the big deal is about it, even though it is an absolutely huge deal. So if you were to write about that, it would get a lot of eyeballs, like instantly, because a lot of people have heard of it already, but they just don't know what it is. So if you kind of like write a blog post and say, hey, I've explained dank sharding in a way that people can actually understand, you're going to get, I can almost guarantee you're going to get a lot of people reading that, a lot of people sharing that. And that's just one example. There are plenty out there of things that, you can go on ETH Research, look at the research posts, convert them into easily digestible information for the everyday person, and you'll be able to kind of like get a lot of attention because of that. Now, in saying that, it's for some things it's not going to be easy, because some things are inherently extremely technical, and it may not even be worth your while to kind of like do all the background research to write about it, because it might take too long, and it might be a boring endeavor too, because there's some stuff that isn't super exciting on the surface, and then even if you dive deeper, it gets like just much more complex. But writing about things that people have heard about, like the merge, even the merge, I think is still pretty misunderstood. But sharding, ZK, but maybe even if you go to like Vitalik's roadmap, in a flowchart that he's put out regularly before, you can probably find it by googling it. And writing about one of the things on there, I think would be really cool as well. So yeah, just a little bit of a spiel about kind of like how to best position yourself to become an educator in this space, whether that's doing Twitter threads, blog posts, YouTube videos, it doesn't matter. As long as you can explain something succinctly to people, and as long as it's exciting when they're reading it too, and it kind of like, I guess, all relates back to how it benefits what you're trying to say it's going to benefit, such as Ethereum or ETH as a token. I think that's how to get people kind of like much more interested in it and get them much more excited about it. And that's what I try to do with my newsletter. I write the newsletter every day, so it's obviously hard for me to do anything kind of like substantial. Like the newsletters are short and sweet, but if I was to write like a longer form content, I would definitely focus on kind of educating about things that I think people should be more excited about, and then relating it all back to what they're already familiar with, such as kind of like Ethereum and ETH and things like that. But I think on that note, I'm going to end it there for today. So thank you everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give that video a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks everyone.